Prehistoric times were a wonderful era where life began. But humans didn't exist during all the prehistoric stages, and that was actually a great advantage. Why? Well, it turns out that during the most parts of those times on the Earth, some really big animals used to live here, and they would have made any human look like a small fly, so we probably wouldn't have survived. These creatures are impressive, and after seeing this countdown, you'll be thankful to have been born millions of years apart from them. Prepare to be surprised with this video, where we'll show you a list of the 5 biggest animals to have ever roamed the planet. But before we begin, make sure you hit that subscribe button to get notified every day for more amazing content. With that being said, let's begin. Number 5. Marine Scorpion. Get the image of the little black scorpion you know out of your head, because this prehistoric scorpion isn't a bit like the popular one. Its scientific name is Jacalopterus, and if you had seen it face to face, you would have probably fainted from fright. Ugly, big, and terrifying, these creatures lived about 400 million years ago. They measured 2.5 meters long by 1 meter wide. These things were simply huge. They belong to a genus of marine scorpions and could weigh up to 180 kilograms. In the fossil record, there are giant centipedes, huge scorpions, and colossal cockroaches, but scientists couldn't imagine the size that these ancient bugs could reach. The existence of this giant scorpion is known thanks to a fossil found in some rock of 390 million years. The size of the specimen surpasses by almost 50 centimeters the record of the largest marine scorpion that had been found until the date. According to the researchers, this creature may have lived in a muddy environment in some regions of the Rhine River in what is now Germany. Due to the enormous size of this animal, scientists say most of the animals that lived at the same time had similar sizes. Can you imagine it? If there are currently small creatures that terrify us, just imagine if we had seen them in a larger size. For example, a super cockroach. That would be really scary. It's believed that Eurypterids are the extinct aquatic ancestors of scorpions and possibly of all arachnids. Some geologists believe that giant arthropods existed during a period on Earth where oxygen levels in the atmosphere were much higher than they are today. Luckily for all of us, oxygen levels decreased before we were born because it wouldn't be at all easy to deal with bugs of such size. Because of its large size, scientists say this huge creature was a super predator in its ecosystem. It could have fed on fish, other smaller specimens of its species, and other invertebrates. Surely, after this, the little scorpions existing today won't seem so terrible. Number 4. Gigantopithecus blacki. Well, let's start by telling you King Kong isn't just a fictional character. Relax, there were never any giant apes fighting with planes on top of a building, but there was one so big that if we had stood by its side, we would have looked tiny. It was the Gigantopithecus blacki. The first investigations on the ape date from 1935, when paleontologist Ralph von Koenigswald found a giant tooth while studying the fossil teeth in a pharmacy in Hong Kong. The pharmacist told him the teeth came from a region called Guangxi. For the next 4 years, von Koenigswald found 3 new teeth in several pharmacies. Koenigswald predicted the tooth belonged to a new species of primate, which he named Gigantopithecus blacki. From these remains and through comparative studies, it has been possible to determine the dimensions of this big guy. The magnitude of this primate is scary. When it comes to weight, it tripled the weight of a gorilla to reach 500 kilograms. Its height also stands out reaching and even exceeds the 3 meters. New researches suggest that Gigantopithecus blacki is the largest known primate that lived in Asia about 1 million years ago, during the Pleistocene period, and went extinct only 100,000 years ago, which means it could have coexisted for some time with human beings. The most curious people have always talked about this animal as a true Yeti or Bigfoot because of its appearance and its enormous size. Little is really known about these primates. It's believed that their closest direct successors are the orangutans and not gorillas in terms of physiognomy. As for diet, researchers are inclined to think this giant was fed on an herbivore diet based on bamboo, like the panda, along with seasonal fruits. Among the little knowledge that is established by the bones found in these primates, it has been considered that the most reasonable possibility for their extinction was a climate change and their problems of adaptation compared to other species. These big friends didn't make it, and the truth is a pity because it would have been quite interesting to live with such a huge being. Although maybe this is not a very good idea. We'll never know how we would have dealt with these enormous primates. Maybe they wouldn't have liked us, and the extinct ones would be us. Number 3. Megalania. Let's see, are you afraid of lizards? If the answer is no, we're sure this one is going to scare you, and if the answer is yes, then you better get ready because this is truly terrifying. The Megalania was one of the largest specimens of lizards that ever existed on Earth. The name Megalania means gigantic wanderer or big wanderer in Greek, because it was a great reptile that was never in just one place. Previously, it was known as Varanus priscus. It lived on our planet during what we know as the Cenozoic era, which is the same as the current era, and it lived in a period not too long ago from us. But calm down, you have nothing to worry about. They're already extinct. The Megalania was a reptile that belonged to the Varanida family, a group of animals where we can find the famous Komodo dragons, which it could have faced without any problem because it exceeded their size. The territory in which this specimen was found is what we now know as Australia. It's known that this giant beast lived in this territory about 40,000 years ago. For this reason, it's believed the first people who lived in that place might have had the luck, or rather, the bad luck, of having lived among these huge specimens that really turned out to be very impressive. The lack of complete or nearly complete fossil skeletons has made it difficult to determine the exact dimensions of Megalania. The first investigations indicate that these animals had sizes bigger than 7 meters and they could weigh from 600 to 620 kilograms. So, the next time you see a small lizard, don't think it's the worst thing in the world. You know there was something much more terrifying. But its most remarkable feature is the sense of smell. Its tongue was probably bifid as that of snakes, which allows detecting the direction of the odor particles to indicate where the prey was. It's believed this animal could track prey more than a kilometer away if it stood on its back legs. This way, it could go after the prey without them knowing what the predator was doing. A surprise attack. Besides being big and having those super senses, these animals were poisonous. Basically, they were like a mega Komodo dragon. How scary. Number 2. Titanoboa. If the name made you think of a giant boa, you have to know you're right. But the dimensions you imagine probably are not even close to those of this giant snake. Let's start by explaining the name. The boa part is easy. It's because they're like the great-grandmothers of the boas, and the titan part, well, that's because of the titanic dimensions that our little friend had. If you saw the Anaconda movie, you have to know that even that one isn't even close to the size of Titanoboa. It was 13 meters long and weighed more than a ton. 60 million years ago, the gigantic prehistoric snake moved through the rainforest of what is now the Department of La Guajira in Colombia. Titanoboa had the appearance of a boa constrictor and ate everything, including crocodiles and anacondas. The boa was 10 times stronger than a current boa is. The research on this reptile, coordinated for 5 years by the Smithsonian Tropical Research Institute and the Florida Museum of Natural History, has found remains that indicate that about 60 titanoboas lived in the Colombian zone. It also opened the door to another revelation. The jungle in which the gigantic reptile lived was more humid, with more carbon dioxide and several degrees warmer than the current ones, which breaks the belief that the higher the heat, the less the diversity of the species. According to the researchers who discovered this super animal, the weight of the beast is the same of that of 10 wrestlers, and its length is that of a school bus. It's the largest snake that ever lived from the boa family. It lived in lakes and killed its victims by strangling them and eating them in one piece. According to the experts, the Titanoboa was at the top of the food chain. It ate everything, even crocodiles, which at that time were much larger than they are now. That suggests it would have also fed on humans if they had lived in the same era. But luckily for us, it was extinguished before the first humans inhabited the earth, and we're very happy about that. Number 1. Sarcosuchus imperator. Let's make something clear. Crocodiles are terrifying, very dangerous, intelligent, and are also among the few who have survived almost all the eras of the earth. The genus Sarcosuchus includes a series of crocodilian reptiles that existed along with the dinosaurs during the Cretaceous period, approximately 112 million years ago. The remains of these super crocodiles have been found in Africa and South America. This type of crocodile had nothing to envy to the great dinosaurs with which it shared space, since it became one of the largest crocodiles and predators that have existed on Earth. The largest modern crocodile, the saltwater one, can measure up to 7 meters, although it usually doesn't exceed 6 meters. Sarcosuchus exceeded more than 10 meters, and it's believed they reached 12 meters. Only the jaw could reach 3 meters. Definitely, this was a super crocodile. The fact that there were also giant herbivores helped that. Carnivores like Sarcosuchus could find abundant food. And since an image says more than 1,000 words, I'll leave this graphic extracted from Wikipedia comparing Sarcosuchus with other crocodiles and with human beings. There's no way you would have wanted to meet this prehistoric crocodile. Not only was it extremely dangerous, it was also quite ugly. Reptiles aren't the most beautiful creatures in the animal kingdom, but to that ugly appearance, we must add that this crocodile had a deformed trunk. The upper part was larger than the lower one, so when closing the mouth there was always a stretch. It was as if both sections belonged to different animals. Some of the found teeth of Sarcosuchus reached 15 centimeters long as those as a T-Rex. It had a lot of teeth, and they were huge. This animal had more than 100 teeth between the two jaws. In other words, it was practically impossible to survive a bite of this kind. And who ate this giant? Well, almost no animal was able to hunt this huge crocodile. Our friend was not only big and fierce, but he was well protected. Most of its body was protected by the bony plates that serve as skin to some reptiles and that are very difficult to break. Prehistoric times were a very dangerous place, and surviving wasn't easy. Luckily, we didn't have to measure ourselves in a battle with any of these giants. Sure, we would not have made it. Alright, Top Fivers, if you haven't already, make sure to visit our other channel, The Brilliant, for even more interesting list videos that'll blow your mind. But I'm warning you, the videos over on The Brilliant are extremely addicting to watch as well. There'll be a link in the description to the channel, so make sure to come and visit us. Or you can go to our latest video popping up on screen right now. Oh, and have you visited thefinestpost.com to enjoy the most amazing articles you'll ever get to read?